owners and/or associates.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Hermann.
Good morning and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Hermann, and I'm here to inspire you with positive messages and celebrate people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts and energies on truth, honesty, and integrity, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you are inspired by today's show. And today is Father's Day, where we honor the strength and kindness of the men who have served as fatherly inspiration. We thank you and encourage those who influence our youth to come from the heart in all you do. Please inspire everyone to come from a place of truth, honesty, and integrity as they strive to be the very best version of themselves. It's also what is known as the time of summer solstice, an important energetic day in our solar calendar that was especially celebrated in earlier civilizations. So today, we're going to take a slightly different direction to honor both of these very special moments. Years ago, I made a promise to guides of the collective to share channeled messages that I received in a series of hypnosis sessions with a man named Gary. These fatherly ones shared hope that humanity may learn from their mistakes and make better choices to create different outcomes for our future. Their words are captured in a series of books called Chronicles of Hope. The first two books are available in print and ebook form. The sessions from Book 3 are being shared through blogs and discussed in our private Inspiring Hope community prior to printing. Information on this critically important series can be found on the book's website, chroniclesofhope.net. The audio version of Book 1 was beautifully narrated by Andrew Periale, an extremely talented voice professional. I welcome you to immerse yourself in this wonderful rendition of the initial sessions with the Anquietas, the Ancient Ones. You will feel as if you are eavesdropping on our conversations as they channel their messages through our beloved Gary. Today and in upcoming Inspiring Hope radio shows, I'm honored to have Andrew join me again to share with you the messages from Book 2 and in time Book 3. You'll find the preface and introduction to Book 2 on the chroniclesofhope.net website. A few years ago, while in session, I interviewed Ray, the god of Atlantis, who was extremely concerned that, as he said, no world is at such a tipping point right now as Earth. I was alarmed and concerned at receiving his messages, while at the same time felt humanity might have had a few years before they needed to change. However, with the challenges of the past year, I now realize how critically important it is that we take heed and act on his concerns now. Today, we share his insights to help people to take notice. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann at WSMN 1590.live or 95.3 FM. Please share these messages, watch the videos on my YouTube channel or website loishermann.com, and join our Hope community for support and inspiration at chroniclesofhope.net. Chronicles of Hope, The Collective, Book 2, Session 1. I am Ray, Patron God of Atlantis.
No world is at such a tipping point right now as Earth.
Intention. Gary and I were committed to meet to gather insights that these wise ones were intent on sharing. In Book 1, our questions prompted the Unquietus to suggest that we may want to speak with a spirit who'd been to Earth, one of their children or children's children. These high-level beings would have been among the mythical gods, archangels, or other helpful spirits that have a vibrational energy level that allow them to be more closely matched to the Earth's energy. We learned much about the different vibrational energy levels of spiritual beings from the Unquietus. Their children would have been more directly involved in humanity's daily existence and could be able to give more specific details as to what has transpired over time, as well as share their concerns for our future and how we may be better able to help. We were intrigued by the possibilities of communicating and hearing insights from one of these high-level beings. Perhaps an ancient god or goddess would come through. We were eager to begin. One of my clearing consultants, Paul, joined us this day to observe and to help keep the energy strong around us while we embarked on another journey. Conversation. After protecting the space, I guide Gary into a gentle trance. When he is ready, I proceed. We ask for an advanced teacher to come through and speak with us today. It could be Archangel Michael, it could be the Ancient Ones who would like to speak with us. We are ready and welcome whomever the Unquietus wants to send to us to answer questions and give us guidance. We are here to listen and be of service.
Incorporo gestuianoi. Quae estas te?
And who are you?
English.
Yes, English, please. We don't understand many other languages.
I am Ray.
Hello, Ray. We're honored to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Please tell us about yourself.
It has been a long time since I have been in a body.
Oh, really? How long?
14,000 of your years.
Oh my, that's quite a while.
There are few bodies that can handle my presence. This one seems remarkably well adapted.
Yet he has a hard time in this life with his body.
That is not uncommon for corporeal beings.
Yes, especially those of higher level vibrations, I understand.
I do not know you. I am Paul. Pleasure to meet you. Oh, nice to meet you. I do know you.
I'm told my name was Arianya.
It is a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Your Highness, it has been so long. I knew one day our paths would cross again.
Well, I have some vague memories, but I don't really know who I was.
Well, that is entirely understandable. The destruction of the city of Muir and the rest of the Atlantean realm was a force the Earth had never seen before.
I understand, so you're from Atlantis.
It took a great deal of effort to put your spirit back together after the accident, and some of the memory was lost. Some of it deliberately excised to protect you.
Thank you. I remember being in a crystal room, some sort of a large room with a huge crystal, and there
Yes.
was.
You were the last high priestess of Atlantis. You were also its greatest high priestess. You served for 126 of your years at the time, which would be 147 current years.
Wow. So as high priestess, what would I have done? What would my role be?
Atlantis was broken into 4 parts, ruled in 4 parts, called the Council. There was the hereditary king and queen. Titus and Thea were the last. They set the course for the Atlantean realm. The ruling body was the 13. There was 1 representative from each of the 12 islands, elected, and 1 representative from the capital city, Muir. They ran the day-to-day business of the realm. There was the military, the army, and the navy. The first prime, which was chosen by the military, always came up through the ranks. The 4th was the priestess. There was a temple of priestesses, and the high priestess was always chosen by me. You were an exceptional individual. Do you know what your name means?
No, not really. Can you tell me?
It means golden eye. You had golden eyes, such as never been seen before or since. That is why you were put into the community of priestesses. And it was why I selected you, partly why I selected you to become high priestess. You are 7 feet tall by today's measurements. You had hair as black as a raven's wing and extraordinary golden eyes.
Wow.
The queen herself was deeply jealous. Those 4 groups ruled the Atlantean realm.
I have memory of being in a temple, an open-air healing temple with other sisters, priestesses, anointing one another and helping others to heal. There were flowers and music and oils and laughter, such pure joy. I feel as if some of the holistic health providers that I work with today go back with me to that time. I have deep knowledge, a connection with some of the women I work with. When I've experienced Shirodara, which is an ancient type of healing method, I travel back in my mind to a time with this type of an open-air temple. I thought it might have been Egyptian or Greece, but maybe it was truly Atlantean.
You were the opposing force to the military.
Oh, okay, the balance.
Yes. So your job was...
To keep the peace?
Yes, to keep the peace. Not that Atlanteans were particularly warlike. It was a federation, a confederation of states. Atlanteans were at peace with all of their neighbors, except for those neighbors who wanted no peace. And that's why there was an army.
I was going to ask why there would be a military.
Purely defensive. Few dared to actually attack Atlantis. They might make raids here and there, but there was no civilization then or now that could rival what Atlantis was capable of.
I understand it was large. Where was the Seat of Atlantis? Many times we think of it as being in the Atlantic Ocean, and then it disappeared near the Bermuda Triangle.
That's a story.
Oh, it's a myth, huh?
Oh, yes. The capital city, Muir, was in what you now call the Altiplano, a region high in the mountains, mostly in the country now known as Peru.
So near Machu Picchu? Did that have something to do with...
No. Machu Picchu was a later civilization. Atlantis is quite old. There were 12 islands, also part of the Atlantean realm. Several of them were in what you now call the Bermuda Triangle. When the accident occurred, all of the crystal generators exploded in the capital city. The same occurred in all the crystal chambers in all of the islands. There were a cluster of islands in the Bermuda area. The confluence of forces The magnetic nature of that particular piece of space combined to tear open a rift in reality. We and our parents required much of our energy to patch the rift. It was too great to completely close. We sealed it as best we could, but there are still traces of it, the rift. Most of the rumors around the Bermuda Triangle are simply accidents that occur. It's a heavily traveled area. Some of them are not. Some of them, if you hit the right space at the right time, with the planet in the proper alignment, the rift does allow passage in both directions. There are things that do come in through that point, and there are things, sadly, that are lost through that point. There is a similar point. If you draw a line through the Earth, through the center of the Earth, in the Sea of Japan region, you'll find a similar opening. It was never as bad, but the shape of the magnetic field of the Earth caused a rift in two places. The one near Japan we were able to patch almost completely. This one, where the crystal generators exploded, was too great.
Well, why did the crystal generators explode? What was it that the people were doing? Were they wanting something bigger or more power? Or was it simply an accident?
Accident and hubris. The Atlanteans controlled energy that your civilization today does still not truly understand. They wanted to control time. They believed they could control the ability to pass forward and backward through time. That cannot be done at the macroscopic level. It can be done at what I believe you call the quantum level, but they wanted to be able to move their bodies between timelines, and the universe forbids that. The amount of power they tried to put in to open a portal completely overloaded all of the crystal generators, and they exploded. In fact, I had told you to warn them that this was the likely outcome, but we could only warn them.
I do remember. I remember being in the room, and I remember trying to stop them.
You were in the room when the detonation occurred.
Yeah, I was there. I was in that room.
It was strong enough to tear even your spirit apart. But I put you back together.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are always my favorite priestess.
Thank you. I do aspire to do well for people and for the planet. We get a little frustrated with humanity. Did you have the frustration back then?
Yes. And no. There was a much lower population back then. The people were simpler. The reason that we encouraged a belief in gods was to encourage them to follow a path which was less self-destructive. By making people think there was reward and punishment in an afterlife, we could make them behave even if they weren't so inclined on their own. Of course, there is no reward and punishment in reality, except that which your spirit carries with you. When you pass on from a mortal form, you bring with you the memories, all of the memories of the actions that occurred when you were in physical form. And you can see your life with much more clarity than you possibly could when you were in physical form. All of the rationalizations, all of the reasons you think, oh, this is a good thing, disappear. And you see everything for what it truly is. Not that there are any absolutes. There is no good and bad. Everything is entirely relative. But you see your life with great clarity once it ends. Many spirits that pass on linger for some period of time, still within the physical dimension, while they sort through their lives, and that can determine what they will do after. Some will want to atone for things they've done and might immediately reincarnate to try and start again. Others believe that they led a just life and move on, or come back because they enjoyed themselves. It is entirely up to the spirit what happens to it. There are those who realize that. the human language does not contain all of the words that I would like to use, realize that their life has been so hurtful to others that they lose so much energy through the negative thought that they sink down to a dimension from which they cannot reincarnate. It can take an amount of time, assuming they ever recover, to bring themselves back.
And that's one of the things that Paul and I do. We help those that are low-level energies into the light, where they have an opportunity for healing. When we identify them, working with Archangel Michael and Jesus, we help transfer and transport them to a place of healing. That seems to be part of my mission in this life.
Several of my kin do that sort of work, and particularly for this planet. There are many other worlds with corporeal life. Some, I don't like the word advanced, are more evolved, an older civilization. Some progressed in such a way that they never went through a competitive stage. If you're on a world that easily provides for everything that you need, if there's never need for conflict, then the conflict never develops, and you wind up with a very different type of civilization. Earth, of course, has had many civilizations. Life on Earth spawned in 3 separate places at roughly the same time. Each civilization grew in areas of Earth that were prosperous at the time. Earth provided everything they needed. But when each of these civilizations grew and contacted them, or each other, that produced the problem. Each believed that they were the center of the universe, that there were no other living things, no other intelligent living things. It is a shock to the ego to discover that you are not special, that there are others. At each point of contact, that produced conflict. While humanity survived those conflicts, these small civilizations learned to live together. As the populations grew, they hesitated to spread out any farther for fear that they might meet yet more people, and stayed as one group in common areas. That led to a reduction in the sustenance that they needed. You can overlive an area of your world to the point that there is not enough food
to sustain. Yeah.
You can spread from that point, migrate from that point. Many do. Or those who live there can fight over the limited resources. Sadly, this is what happened in most of these civilizations.
So, 3 civilizations. Could you identify the ones who started at the same time? Are they civilizations that we're now aware of?
Yes. If the way in which they found each other has not been recorded in history, but it is just simple migration. The Asian culture was the most isolated for the longest period of time. The African culture met with the North American culture more quickly. Oh, that seems a little odd given the ocean in between. But it was not so impassable at one point, when the Earth was much younger. It was the African civilization that migrated north, as did the North American civilization. They met through what you now call the Bering Sea, which at the time was not a sea. There was a land bridge, or more of an ice bridge. The civilizations met in that area. But having traveled that far, the traveling groups had almost formed their own civilization, different from their original parent group. Humans actually evolved much more quickly than many other species, non-terrestrial species. They have a great capacity for imagination. They are, in general, more willing to accept the groups that were willing to make change, to leave, were more willing to accept that they would meet other groups. Those meetings were generally very peaceful, and those groups formed other communities of their own. But again, having traveled far, they decided this is where they wanted to stay and overstayed the land's ability to provide. Some remembering their ancestry, traveled on. Others stayed and fought. It is a curious piece of human nature that the capacity for love and the capacity for war are equally great. It's difficult to explain, even for us who have watched humanity grow for 14,000 years. We still observe.
So the three separate places of initial growth of humanity, do these predate Atlantis?
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is a time of Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. Modern scientists now believe that the Neanderthal, the Cro-Magnon, the modern man, were not the separate species that had long been thought, but were merely subspecies. Not Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, and Homo sapiens, but Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, Homo sapiens Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens sapiens. Much as two breeds of cat are the same species.
I understand, yeah.
Now, the Neanderthal were the first species truly recognizable as human by today's definition of human. They were hunters and gatherers. They migrated far and wide. The reason the Earth is as populated as it is because they were willing to travel. Life was not quite the hardship that modern people think that it must have been at that time. Certainly, there are areas of the planet that were less hospitable, but as a whole, the climate was stable. There were glaciations, but between the glaciations, Earth was very fertile. Earth has always been an amazingly productive planet. There is an ideal balance between the amount of radiation that causes mutation and the amount of radiation that would be dangerous. The mutation rate is just right to spread life quickly. Even though the original spark of life was not from Earth, it was a hospitable area from which life could come. Eventually, that spark would have happened. Mars just got there first. It has no cosmic significance.
So is there any truth to the idea that it was people from other galaxies that came, those that we sometimes refer to as aliens, to help perpetuate or expand the Homo sapiens species? Was there some interaction with other otherworldly beings that caused the evolution to change?
There are a great many species on many worlds that develop into intelligent life. Not quite as many as some of your scientists think there might be, but enough. However, the physical distances are so vast that it is almost impossible to travel between worlds populated by intelligent species. The ability to cross greater distances at what would be perceived as faster than light travel is possible. Very, very few species develop it. Partly because it is a difficult process, mostly, sadly, because species who develop that level of technology tend to exterminate themselves before they get that far. What you perceive as alien visitation is not a physical visitation, but a spiritual one. It is possible to project your spirit, a part of your spirit. Enough is always left behind to keep the body going. Project part of your spirit and part of your consciousness to any point. Humans have that ability. Some develop it and some do not, but the process is known as astral projection. It is not strictly necessary to project only into the astral plane. You can project within your own physical dimension. There is no speed of light limitation on that process. You can be anywhere at any time. Present time, travel to the past and the future is sometimes possible with the right thought and the right control and the right reason. Why you want to do a thing is always more important than what you are actually doing. So while you physically cannot move freely through time, mentally it is actually possible.
Therefore, could someone project their spirit into a human body that might be perceived as alien?
That is very difficult. When a physical body is born, a spirit is either chosen or created to take that body, and they're matched. That match exists for the life of the combination. When the physical body dies, then the bond is broken. It is almost impossible for another spirit to enter someone's body, partly because the body can only barely hold the spirit that it holds, and partly because the vibrational match won't be precise enough. The match that occurs at the moment of birth is a magical thing, and it is very difficult to replicate on a conscious by conscious effort. It can be done. I'm here, but I have no physical form. I have never been matched to a body. For me to try to incorporate as a physical entity would destroy the body within moments. The amount of energy is just too great, even to do what I do now. I have not done since you, 14,000 years ago. You were the last body that I was ever able to... there is no English word for this.
So please say it in your language. I would love to hear it in your ancient language.
Kumoa. What is happening now, we could do. It was slightly different because the spirit of this body is one of my kin. I have more access to this body than I otherwise might. Even if we could take this type of form more often, we would not. We want races to develop on their own. In the case you mentioned, aliens, what typically happens is the projection can appear as solid form. It's possible to take local material and form a temporary body held together by the energy. And that's extremely difficult. There are very few races that have evolved to that point. Humans are not there yet, but typically we see them project themselves into the minds of others. And all that humans see, all that any corporeal form sees, is a function of how its mind processes the sensory apparatus that it contains. If you introduce into someone's mind a vision, they will think they see it. In other words, it is possible to make yourself appear to really be there. This is what alien encounters typically are.
So it's like a hologram. It's an imaginary vision that the person is able to see?
No, a hologram is a trick of the light. It is still something seen by the eye and processed by the brain. This occurs entirely within the brain. There is literally nothing there. If I were to project myself into you to see something, you would see something, and you, Paul, would not, looking at the same space. There are races who do share their information. They want to see other races evolve to their level. They want to be visited in return. Many of the mysteries of ancient artifacts are actually not alien projections. Humans today do not give humans of the past sufficient credit for their abilities. They tend to think of everything they learn as having been learned by civilization for the first time. Much was known by ancient humans and was forgotten or destroyed, and that is why there are races that have evolved higher. Even though most corporeal races have existed for more or less the same period of time, the universe had to be in a certain state for this type of life to develop. So the differences between the different races are caused by how the race developed, not by how long they had actually been a race. The Atlantean culture was, by some measurements, more advanced than anything you have today. Even if there is technological improvement, there are things today that could not have been conceived of by the Atlanteans. But their system of government, their democracy, preceded the creation of the word democracy by over 10,000 years. Sadly, all that was known of Atlantis was destroyed. The failure of the experiment obliterated everything. Only those few Atlanteans who happened to be out elsewhere in the world survived. What little culture they had was carefully preserved and then lost when the library at Alexandria was destroyed. That was truly the end of the Atlantean civilization. Even their genetic makeup has been lost by 7,000 generations. There would be no trace of it. We try not to take favorites. Some of us do have worlds we prefer to visit. Some of us have civilizations that we have preferred on any given world. Atlantis was always very special to me. I was the patron god of Atlantis.
Were you ever in corporeal form at that time?
No, I cannot take corporeal form. Even this is a great strain and will have to end soon.
Yes, I want to honor that.
I could not be born in corporeal form, but it was an enormous honor for me to be able to share your form with you, even if for such short periods of time as we did. I always tried to give you information that would balance what the other sections of Atlantis were trying to do. The king and queen were good people. They made a mistake. The 13 were good and just people. They made a mistake. That is the nature of all life. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. We are sometimes overcautious. I could not have made myself appear before the council without burning their eyes out and told them to stop. It probably wouldn't have helped. You were one of the most respected citizens of the realm, and they didn't listen to you. Knowing your words came from me. Sometimes children can only learn from their mistakes. It doesn't mean that the parent has failed, but that makes it no less painful.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. We're being guided to do something. You're here for a reason now. The Unquatus is imploring us to do something to help create change. From what I understand, we're facing a similar situation with humanity now.
My kin have conveyed that information, that this world, in a sense, it is one civilization now on Earth. In another, there is still tribalism. We would like to see humans outgrow this tribalism. It is such a deeply ingrained piece of humanity, coupled with the fact that this world is infamous among the universe for the nature of life here. It attracts new spirits that seek to learn by doing. They can do so much more on this world than on most others. That they come here, this is their first choice. That can destabilize a world. We cannot intervene. We can recommend, but we believe there are enough old souls here to make the Earth the paradise that it once was. I believe it's so funny to call them my parents. The word doesn't even begin to apply, but when you speak to our creators, the information they give us, or they give you, is to try to return people to the beliefs that we wanted them to have when we said, yes, we are your gods. We make thunder, we make lightning, we make rain. We recognize that humans, more than most intelligent species, seem to need to believe in something greater than themselves. It doesn't get much greater than to be human if you're corporeal. When a human body dies and its spirit is released, even if that was its first incarnation, it will have grown more than older spirits who are leaving an incorporation in other species. Partly, it's the nature of Earth. Gaia is alive. Not all planets are. The spirit of the Earth, suffering though it is in modern times, still strives to spur evolution. Gaia is a good mother. She has nothing but love for her children, nothing but the best intentions for them. Humans seem to have lost the ability to hear her. If you want to convey information to help humanity, that is the most important thing. My parents wouldn't tell you that. We have more of a free hand because we have the ability at some level to interact with the physical world. They have become too detached. They have infinite wisdom and knowledge, but no heart. We learn to have heart, even though we have no hearts. We feel the suffering of the races that suffer, and humanity, for all its ability, almost seems to enjoy suffering. And in some ways, that's not a bad thing. Suffering and conflict promote growth and strength. But that growth can take many paths. You want to choose a path that promotes harmony between people, as opposed to a path that promotes yet more conflict. On Earth, there has always been more or less a balance. It may swing like a pendulum. Today, the pendulum has been pinned too far to the wrong side for too long. If some sort of balance does not begin to restore itself, it will reach a point where it will not be possible to achieve balance anymore. The nature of the spirits that Earth will begin to attract are such that they won't even permit that to happen.
Is that what we're encountering in the work that Paul and I do? Part of what we're called to do is to identify what I'm calling nasties. I prefer to avoid calling them demons. Sometimes they're just low-level energies. Other times they're lost human souls. But some seem to be malevolent. They appear to be decidedly, to use the word, evil. They want to manipulate. They want to make people suffer. When we encounter them, we call on your brethren to help them. But we're in a unique position to identify that they're here. I know better than to do battle with them myself because they're not at my level. I understand they're at a different dimensional level. Archangel Michael, Jesus, or their legions of light will often come to take care of the low-level entities, saying, "We will take this where it belongs." Is this what you're referring to by attracting these energies that will cause more destruction and chaos?
That is a large part of it, yes. It is the balance of energies within a vibrational dimension that defines the dimension. As the balance changes, in this case, as the vibrational energy lowers, it becomes harder for higher vibrational beings, what you would think of as angels, to come in because the vibrational difference is too great. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it becomes easier for lower vibrational energies, what you would call demons, to get in. This is an accelerating curve. It hasn't reached the point yet that it cannot be corrected. That point is very near. Even we don't see the future. We predict based on what we see happen and what we have seen happen. We know the time is close. The message to get out to people is the message that my child, Jesus, delivered 2,000 years ago. You must cooperate. You must harmonize. We hesitate to use the word love. It has so many meanings.
Yes, we understand.
Those who have too much need to give, those who have too little must be willing to accept. The balance has got to be brought back before it's too late. I failed Atlantis, and a civilization died. Many of my kin spend more time here than on many of the other worlds. No world is at such a tipping point right now as Earth. We have lost some worlds. As I said, there are races that evolved. Their technology outstripped the evolution of their wisdom. Greed comes from a belief that there isn't enough. It comes from insufficiency. If you believe there isn't enough for everyone, then you will hoard it. and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, there isn't enough for everyone. Even given Earth's population, there is still enough for everyone. There is nothing that needs to be hoarded. Humans have the technology to fix even the problems that Gaia cannot fix. There are places which are arid. They could be watered. There are trees that can be replanted. The rainforests are not gone yet. They can be brought back. Once they are gone, they cannot be brought back. The system is such that it needs the proper environment in which to grow. Once that environment has been destroyed, you cannot bring it back. It's not simply a matter of planned genetics. The system as a whole has a hysteretic ability. But just as you can bend a piece of wood so far, if you bend it too far, it breaks. You can't put it back together again. These are the messages that they, the collective, want passed along.
I know right now one of my personal missions is to teach other people to do the clearing and energy alignment work that I have been taught to do, because in my own small way, I feel I am making a difference. With Paul's assistance, we bring in the archangels to help release the dark entities, the shadows, whatever we want to call them. We help bring some balance back at a small level. But I'm only one person, and I feel compelled to teach. I'm really having a hard time finding those who are willing to learn. Can you help to send those who I may teach? I have 3 people interested, but 3 is enough to start. I want to spread these simple, valuable techniques that I've learned from my teachers and developed with your guidance with other people who want to work in this realm.
If you teach 2 people, and they teach 2 people, it doesn't take very long to reach everyone. I do not have the ability to send people to you. However, if the message you put out is the right message, there is a lot of despair in the world today. A message of hope is all most people need to want to listen. The problem is that there are people whose intent is questionable, who are offering what they call hope. The reason that Hitler was able to create the most powerful and efficient civilization in modern history was because after World War I, hope was stripped from Germany. What most people never stop to realize is the first country the Nazis took over was Germany. This can still happen again today. There are so many people in need of hope that they will believe the wrong message, as well as the right message. You have to reach them first. The book you are trying to write is good, a good idea. It is sufficiently controversial that it will attract attention. There will be many people who will speak out against it, and that will drive more people to it. Never be afraid to publish your thoughts. Say what you want to say. The words that we have given you are good words. Make them your own, and you will succeed. Let opposition strengthen you. Don't be afraid. Don't back down. We are here. We are behind you.
Thank you. You have mentioned your kin who are here. Are you speaking of our friend Archangel Michael? Is he one of your kin who you refer to as here with us? Because we have a great deal of honor and respect for all that he has done for us.
The name Archangel Michael takes credit for a lot of the work that my kin does. We are not individuals in the sense that corporeal beings are. It's not so much a shared consciousness, but a joint consciousness. Despite being the most prolific language in the creation of new words, English is missing quite a few. We each know what the other does. We each are a part of what the other does. When you ask for Archangel Michael, you're asking for an image of the being that has a certain task that it can perform, just as each of the archangels has always been associated with different activities. They are all equal. Any one of us can do any of those things. It is in human nature to want to put labels on things.
We understand.
And Jesus was my kin in that we were part of his creation. He is capable of incorporating in physical form, as all of his siblings are. But the same rule applies. When not in physical form, any one of the 32,768 of his siblings can at any time be Jesus to somebody who seeks his name. He got rather a larger reputation than we generally like to get when we appear on worlds. Those who can incorporate try to help from a quiet distance. He hit a sore spot at just the right time. He's not the first, and he won't be the last.
I know that we're taxing you.
This body is starting to hurt.
Yes, I can tell we're taxing you. I have one last question, if you're able. The angelic energy, the vibration of an angel, is that what Jesus would be when he's not in corporeal form?
That is a fair description. He, his spirit, of all our spirits, exists in a higher dimensional plane. We can, to one degree or another, lower ourselves, lower our energies to enter the physical. It is easier for my children than for us. We can only do this temporarily and under very special circumstances, which I'm pushing to the limit right now. Most of the spirits that people consider to be angels are my children. Many of the spirits that people think to be demons are also my children. The imposition of good and evil is a corporeal thing. When you see something that you agree with, you think that as good. When you see something you disagree with, you think of that as evil. But those are your definitions. And you have yours and everybody has theirs. Good and evil are not absolutes. They are relative. Something can only be good in comparison to something that isn't. But make no mistake, there are spirits which do not have the best interests of corporeal life in mind. And a lot of times, it's hard to tell the difference. It's what's in their hearts, not what comes out of their mouths. The people who put the greatest good for the greatest number ahead of themselves, those are the people you can trust. There are a lot of them on Earth. Their activities go largely unnoticed. It is much easier to attract attention when you do something that is perceived as being wrong than it is when you do something that is perceived as being right. That's sad, and if you can find a way to fix that, you'll go a long way toward making this a much better place. I wish I had an answer for you. I wish I could tell you how to do it. It would be nice if I could simply appear in the sky and tell people what I'm telling you. It doesn't work that way. I depend on you to take these words and put them out where everyone can see them. Some will believe, some will not. Some will follow, some will not. But I will tell you what my child Jesus said 2,000 years ago. I am not God. Don't follow me. You are the gods. Follow each other. Learn to love each other. That will solve all your problems. I have to leave.
Thank you so much, Ray.
It's so good to see you again.
It was good to see you too. And as he leaves, we leave you today with hope in our heart, with the ability to trust one another and love one another. You can find all of these messages at chroniclesofhope.net. I hope you enjoy this show. Thank you so much, Andrew. You are an inspiration. I appreciate you deeply.
Thank you.
Until next week, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. God bless.